Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We are back and live on this Sunday episode of Newsflash. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about coronavirus and how the global death toll tragically has surpassed 200,000 people. But the question is this death toll even truly accurate? We're also going to be taking a look at some of the good news, how Italy's prime minister wants the country to ease Europe's longest coronavirus lockdown that we've seen yet. And this is really going to be something that we're going to have to watch. Right? Like, how is this going to fare? We're talking about more of the coronavirus news. Also taking a look at the dangers of the New York Times, guys. We love them. We love them here on this show. They provide good news, but they screwed up this week. We'll tell you how that happened. The corruption of Congress and why we could never really end up going back to normal. This is Newsflash. A piece by Katherine Krueger on that one should be a little bit depressing, but we'll see. I'll give my thoughts on that. And I hope your quarantine's going well. Hope everybody is doing well. We're going to get right into it today, talking about why this global death toll, it could be around 200,000 people. But the real toll is a mystery. The coronavirus pandemic has now killed more than, obviously, 200,000 people and taken more than 2.8 million worldwide, according to data collected by the New York Times. At least 177 countries have reported cases of COVID-19, the disease caused by the virus. But the actual toll is higher by an unknown degree and will remain so for some time. Times review of mortality data in 12 countries showed that official tallies have undercounted deaths during the outbreak largely because of limited testing. There's a lot of things you don't really know. Like, if you want to, just for the sake of numbers, test someone when they're already dead with COVID-19, like, that's not a very appropriate way to find that out. Like, can you test a corpse if they had COVID-19? You don't know. If they come in the hospital and they die for some other reason, are you sure it's because of COVID-19? You can't really be sure, can you? So, like, that's the tough thing about it, and that's why we don't really know until we can get a lot of testing done. And there could be a way to fill that in, but we just don't know at this point. Several thousand people in New York City who died from without testing positive for COVID-19, and thousands more in other countries, and probably more happening in this country as well, are considered to be probable cases. They just have not been able to test them. Still, the official number offers a sense of the scale and speed of the pandemic. The virus's pace can really be measured in just as a factor of just its doubling, as the global death count surpassed 100,000 on April 10th, just 2 weeks ago. Wow, it's just absolutely crazy. We just passed this thing, just passed 100,000 on April 10th, and now 200,000 is the new death toll. The U.S. now has by far the world's largest known outbreak, with more than 950,000 cases and the death toll approaching 50,000. Europe has also been hard hit. There are more than 26,000 deaths among 197,000 known cases in Italy, and there are more than 23,000 deaths among the 270,000 cases in Spain. So you can look at that mortality rate, and you can draw your kind of own conclusions for that. But the only two countries that have confirmed more than 20,000 deaths are France, with 22,800, and Britain, which crossed into that range this past Saturday. Germany and Turkey both have outbreaks of more than 100,000 cases, but their official death tolls are lower. Deaths per capita offers another measure of the pandemic. Belgium, with about 12 million people, has suffered the second highest such toll, according to the Times database, with 62 deaths per 100,000 people. So the mortality there, it's getting to people particularly bad in Belgium for some reason. But the Belgium's toll may reflect its more complete counting of deaths. Unlike many other countries, Belgium includes in its death counts at nursing homes. Deaths at nursing homes where clustered elderly populations are especially vulnerable. Spain's reported toll is 50 deaths per 100,000 people. Italy's is 44, and the United States is 15 per every 100,000 people. So it's definitely, it puts you in perspective, and also is kind of a better number to look at in terms of maybe looking on the more positive side. But obviously, death in any country, in any place, is never something to be looked at positively. Most countries do not report deaths that occur outside of hospitals, and deaths occurred before the virus was known to be circulated. Like 2 in Santa Clara County are only now starting to be re-examined. And furthermore, some countries, of course, may be deliberately undercounting their tolls. So that's a possible source of error there for you that is quite obvious and quite clear there. Yeah, we've also seen Italy's prime minister. Let's talk about some good news. Italy's prime minister has considered Giuseppe Conte. He's begun to develop kind of a plan of sorts to ease the country out of the coronavirus lockdown, which has been the longest lockdown in Europe. It was lasted for quite a bit. Italians, they heard details on Sunday of the Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte's plan to ease restrictions and reopen their economy starting on May 4th. And boy, I wish we could be in a place like that. But Italy, hopefully, they have made the right decision and are opening at the right time. It's going to be an interesting test case to see, because Italy, we all know we are at a certain point on the curve, and we are a little bit behind Italy in how our virus has spread out, but it's not really comparable due to the fact that we are such a larger country, both population-wise, economy-wise, and just geographically. So it's not really comparable, but we would all like to hope, obviously, that we are in that place too, and we can start to reopen our country safely. Now begins the phase for everybody of living with the virus, says Conte in a primetime address on Sunday night, adding that a failure to respect social distancing will cause infections in infections to climb again, and the government to close the tap. If you love Italy, he implored, maintain distance. The government has had to constantly weigh Italy's economic interests and those of millions of struggling Italians with the public health of the entire country. It has been an excruciating balance. But Conte's government has decided, again, I apologize. All this we've said on the show has been reporting from the New York Times as of this point. They do have some good information here on this stuff. They have tons of tracking, tons of live updates to keep people posted on, which is incredibly helpful stuff. But, the government has had to constantly weigh these huge things that everyone else is weighing. It's a very, very tough thing to weigh. There's almost really no right answers. There's no way to say for certain that you are doing the right thing. But with the public health of the entire country, it has been excruciating balance. But Conte has decided that the country, which entered a lockdown on March 10th, could not stay closed indefinitely. While gatherings and other parties remain banned, the travel remains closely regulated, with special auto certification forms required for movements. And Conte said that the visiting of relatives will be allowed to people within Italian regions on May 4th. So, that's the possibility of. Yeah, gatherings and parties, they remain banned. And they've had a social lockdown that has been much stricter than ours ever has been. And there's probably a big reason why they have just the amount of deaths is so low comparatively. Schools, he said, would remain closed for the rest of the academic year, as his scientific advisors had informed him the return of students could trigger an explosion of cases. He added the danger was intensified by the high average age of Italy's teachers, which is a big factor as well. I don't know how that compares to the United States, but you can imagine a lot of the factors there would be the same. Conte fixed a price for individual masks at 50 cents to prevent price gouging, and said that manufacturing and construction sectors would be allowed to operate as long as workers observe social distancing and wore masks, which is probably going to be a little bit tough. But they're probably going to have to figure out a way with it. And we're finding out more and more, at least the prevailing narrative out of European countries is there's going to be going to have to be some sort of in-between narrative that's been formed here. Something that kind of comes in between normal life and complete another lockdown. And I think what they're really trying to do, like I heard Nicola Sturgeon of Scotland talking about this, about how they're going to have to find some sort of happy medium, some sort of regulation in between the two, where we can control cases once the curve is somewhat flattened, as the surging of the virus is controlled. We have to say, okay, how can we open the economy as much as possible with being as safe as possible? Some sort of in between. It looks like Italy is trying to do that. This is what I think they mean when they say, oh, how are we going to live with the virus? How are we going to cope with the virus? And how are we going to actually keep our economy safe and keep our country functioning here? The official count of virus-related deaths in Italy stands at 26,644, but the experts say the real number is far higher. Conte said that funerals would be once again permitted beginning on May 4th, but they would be limited to 15 people, preferably in an outdoor setting, which is probably pretty tough if you have a big family. Parks may also reopen on that date, subject to the approval of local mayors and regional governors, and outdoor exercise such as jogging could be carried out more than 200 meters from the home. Restaurants could begin offering takeout, not just delivery. Conte also gave a preview of businesses that could reopen down the road. On May 18th, he said stores could possibly open. Coffee bars, restaurants, hairdressers, and beauticians would open no sooner than June 1. Asked by a reporter when free movement could return, he said that a potential phase 3 would arrive with the discovery of the vaccine. Until then, he said we must get ready for phase 2. Yeah. It's really kind of incredible. Like they're just talking about, oh, we're reopening our lockdown, and maybe we'll think about allowing takeout. But it just shows you like how other countries have taken this so much more serious. Like they've taken it super seriously. You gotta give them a lot of credit here. Italy, they have taken it super seriously. Look at what they've restricting. Look what they're thinking about opening back up. Like parks have been open for us. They've been closed for them. Like you see, like pictures, at least even in New York, of people like really close together, like Newport Beach, California. There's pictures out there of just people right onto, or really close to each other with the umbrellas and the outdoor setting. Outdoor exercise. I see people jogging every single day. I jog. I'm guilty. I jog more than 200 meters from the home, and. Yeah, parks have been wide open here, and it's really kind of disturbing. It's like, do we just screw up here? Is Italy like way ahead of us, and could we be doing a lot better and more restrictions with the social distancing? And I don't know. Are we, because they have been social distancing and their public health restrictions have been a lot stronger than ours. So that is something that I think is definitely worth noting here. If you think you have it bad, at least you don't live in Italy. Where you're not allowed to leave your house 200 meters from the home, and only restaurants can only deliver at this point. So that is really something. And I think what's really going to start to happen, at least in America, is you're going to see a lot of people do it differently in different parts of the country. Like where there's a lot more fear mongering, where there's a lot more fear about the virus. People are going to take the virus more seriously, and when there's people like pushing for reopening, I mean, it's just like everything else in our country. It kind of feels like it's become a red state, blue state thing, where we have red state people being like, "Oh, it's a hoax. Let's get our country back together. We can't have the cure worse than the disease." But then maybe I'm wrong about this, and I definitely think it's a generalization. Like you're going to have outliers, a lot of outliers on each side that don't necessarily fit into this narrative. But if I had to make that assumption, I would say that I think you could probably correlate it politically, which is a really kind of sad testament to how our country has done in terms of what you think of the coronavirus lockdown strategies. Like you could probably correlate it to your political beliefs, which I think really says a lot. Let's now talk about prisons. Prisons have become a powerful breeding ground for, again, this reporting here for the New York Times. Prisons have become a powerful breeding ground for the coronavirus, prompting governments to release hundreds of thousands of inmates and scramble to curb the spread of the contagion behind bars. The pandemic has also set off rebellions as angry inmates have called new attention to chronic problems in correction systems, as in many countries, including filth, limited access to healthcare, and overcrowding. As the virus plunged virtually every country into crisis mode, the UN experts on detention, World Health Organization, and human rights activists have urged governments to reduce their prison populations swiftly. In many countries, detention facilities are overcrowded, in some cases dangerously so. U.S. with one of the highest prison population in the world. We have what is it? 25% of all people in prison are in the U.S., despite only having 5% of the world's population. Like the global prison population, 25% of it is U.S. prisoners, right? And we have only 5% of the world's total population. So if you take a look at that, it's 5 times there, buddy. 5 times. At least 125 countries hold more prisoners than their correctional systems were designed for, including 20 that have more than 2 times the number of inmates they're equipped to secure, according to the database World Prison Brief. Brazil is one of the largest and most overloaded prison systems. Andrelina Amelia Ferreira, who heads the Mothers of Jail movement in Sao Paulo, says she has received hundreds of messages from women